You said to me before I even watched it, you were like, oh, it's pretty progressive.
That's what we want more in film. We don't want to be preached at. You want good storytelling. Don't force it upon them.
Don't need to leave it unlocked. I have an all-access pass.
Like, wow. Obviously, Marilyn Monroe had her struggles with alcohol, and then she's very sexually active and...
Talking to me?
Music playing. All right. Welcome back to the Video Lineup Podcast. I forgot for a second then what the name of the podcast was. My name is Thomas, and this is...
Nick.
Nick got to say his own name. Well done.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm allowed to speak this week.
Yeah. We are trying a new thing. We're trying to be a little bit more structured. So we're going to introduce this podcast. The concept is that we're working our way through the AFI Top 100 Films of All Time, the American Film Institute Top 100 Films of All Time, which was created, the original list created in 1998 and voted on by 1,500 or so industry professionals. So they've come up with this fancy list, which has a lot of old movies, but it's also got some newer movies. Star Wars is like 50 years old, nearly. But this week we are doing Some Like It Hot from 1959. We've already, this will be 14, number 14.
This is the first comedy, maybe?
Yeah, I was actually thinking when I watched it, I was like, I don't think I've laughed at all through this whole list.
I laughed through Schindler's List. That was...
Yeah, I forgot. That is hilarious. The crystal nuts scenes of Schindler's List, that is some crack up stuff.
No. There's humour in others, but you wouldn't call them comedy.
Yeah, just in case someone is like fully not understanding, we are joking. Schindler's List is not a comedy. I mean, I didn't think it was a comedy, or am I about to learn something about your beliefs?
It was a bad joke.
That was a brilliant joke. It was good. Just sometimes people are really dry, and you don't know if they're joking, and especially if you meet someone for the first time, and you're just like, I don't know if I can laugh because you may be serious, and we may be about to have a really awkward interaction, and then they break it, and they're like, ha ha ha, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like so lost all my confidence in a conversation now. I don't have the ability to keep such a straight face for like more than half a second. I'll always let people off the hook.
Yeah.
Anyway, Some Like It Hot.
Yes. But first, how was your week?
Oh yeah, well my week. Well,
we had a long weekend for those who are in Victoria.
Yes.
Or is it across Australia? I don't know.
No, well I don't know. There was two. So they have the Australian rules football grand final, which is like the Super Bowl of American and everything. It's the big thing, and we get a day off on the Friday games on Saturday. So yeah,
isn't the Monday a public holiday as well?
Today is Monday. Yeah. I worked
too, but
there
I
was
worked
people
on Friday as well.
Yeah. Now, working for yourself, usually you're not as in tune with these things. But no, I don't think today. Maybe some people take it off.
Yeah.
But I watched this movie today, so I sort of took part of today off.
Yeah, fresh. I watched it last week because we were meant to record. But
so we've got two different perspectives on it. We've got like an instant knee-jerk reaction.
I remember none of it. So.
Yeah. You've lost all memory, but at least you were prepared. I'm the least prepared. I'm horrifically badly prepared. But no, been a good week.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been very tired.
Yeah, I think it's meant to be warm now in Victoria, but it's still not quite there. We did have one sunny day on Saturday, but yeah.
Yep. Oh, sorry, I swallowed
a bit cold.
Tea in front of the microphone. That's gross. Yeah, Melbourne is this thing where it's like in spring, it can get warm in the sun.
Yeah.
And it can get hot, and so you take your layers off, and then if you walk into the shade, you're like, oh,
it's so cold.
It's so cold. It's like just the warmth of the sun. The shade is all still in winter. Yeah. But I want to move to Queensland.
It's coming. Yeah, one day.
Yeah,
one day.
Queensland is a state in Australia that is warmer. In case you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Some countries you're like, do they have states? I know America has states.
Yeah.
What about Britain? Does Britain have states? They've got like.
I think they call them something else, but.
What do they have them in? What's the word in?
In New Zealand, they have shires.
They have shire. That is. Do they really have shires, or is that a Lord of the Rings thing?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh man, I was like, if they have shires, then it was Lord of the Rings was definitely meant to be shot in New Zealand. Yeah. Oh, that's great. No, somewhere else has shires. We have the Mornington Peninsula Shire.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's not that far-fetched.
Not as enchanting as.
It's not as enchanting. No. What does England have? They'd have. They must have regions, sections. And France has something. I know Paris has arrondissements.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's all just
okay.
numbers. The different
Yeah,
arrondissements instead of set of suburbs.
Okay.
But some of them have names too, I think.
Yeah.
But they have.
You've got to have names. You can't just have a number.
Nah. Well, we've got Victoria.
It's 2 districts.
District, I think.
100 Hunger Games.
Well, I think, does Canada have districts or do they have states?
Yeah, probably now they have districts. But
we should know some things about this. This is why this is a movie podcast, not a geography podcast. Tune in on every Thursday morning for our geography discussions with our new geography podcast that we're learning geography with Thomas and Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should I...
well, let's move on. Yeah, that's a good. Let's talk about our episode.
So as I said, this is the comedy romance, a little bit maybe.
Yeah,
it's in there, peppered in there.
There's romance.
So it stars Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. Lemon.
Don Lemon. That's Jack Lemmon.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it 2 M's?
2 M's?
Because it's a name, not a fruit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so Some Like It Hot 1959 is a classic comedy about 2 struggling musicians, Joe, Tony Curtis, and Jerry Jack Lemon, who accidentally witness a mob hit in Chicago. To escape the gangsters chasing them, they disguise themselves as women. Do
you know how many people, I make videos for a living, and do you know how many people, like, as maybe people with English second language, you like, it's W-O-M-A, M-A-N is a woman, singular, and women is M-E-N, and then you say, you clearly enunciate the difference, and every single time, that always, everyone is woman, it's always woman. There were 30 women there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating.
So they disguise themselves as women and join an all-female band headed to Florida. While hiding, both men find themselves in tricky situations. Joe falls for the band's singer, Sugar Cane, which is Marilyn Monroe, while Jerry attracts the romantic attention of a wealthy male suitor. The film is filled with mistaken identities, romantic entanglements, and hilarious moments as the pair tries to keep their secret. Though at times they try to expose it. Well, they're keen to, anyway. Yeah,
apparently there was a scene, obviously they dress up as the women, they get on the train cart, and they've all got the sleep. Honestly, as romantic as in, I'm about to use the word romantic, not necessarily in between man and a woman, but just the idea of the romance of the train journey. Like, that was very cool, like having all the sleeper carts, and it seemed really cozy. And I literally had a moment watching the movie where Jack Lemmon is dressed as a woman, although I was like, oh man, that'd be awful to try and go to sleep still in all that makeup and all those things. It seemed really cozy. It's like, a minute ago he was freezing cold getting shot at in Chicago or something. This looks like a pretty good situation, even if it ends right now.
Yeah.
But apparently there's a scene where he sneaks over to Sugarcane Kowalczyk's little cabin thing, and he, unloads immediately. Like we're only 20 minutes into the movie or something. Who he is, and he's in love with her, and he's all that sort of stuff. And then it turns out Tony Curtis he'd been talking to Tony Curtis, his co-partner in crime. Okay. And then obviously the movie continues, but they cut that scene. So it's like,
so that would have changed the whole.
Well, no, it's that because she wasn't there.
Okay.
So he thought he was
back to Then
he goes back to bed and realizes they cut it out. But you're exactly right. It feels like they're just constantly trying to, and so many times you're like, oh, this would give him away. Like, he goes swimming with them. Like, there's no way that these women don't know that this is a dude. I mean, it's not like he's been practicing all the different ways in which you might be able to deceive people. He's literally just done this yesterday. So anyway, we're skipping through there for a second. No, you go.
Jumped the gun.
Yeah, he jumped the gun totally. It does feel like that. I was just trying to find the trivia on IMDb, because I did enjoy reading all the trivia on this.
But it opens with a intense scene, doesn't it? With a car chase.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
No,
it's set in 1929. We should say that, right before the crash, the stock market crash. I think it's called.
Yeah, okay.
I looked it up the other day. I was looking up stock market crash. It's like Black Friday or something like that. It's called, or Black Tuesday. Something along those lines. There's a name for that day, and that's when the 1929 stock market crash happened and ushered in the Great Depression. And there's actually a scene at the beginning where they're obviously playing in this speakeasy that's about to be raided. Obviously, just following this car chase with these gangsters who are bringing the liquor in and all that sort of stuff. And they're standing there playing their instruments in the band, talking about, oh, we're going to do this with the one paycheck that we're about to get. We'll bet it on something. And then the other guy goes, suppose this happens, suppose that happens, suppose, so-and-so and that other actress break up, and then suppose the stock market crashes or something like that. Every single thing he says, because obviously this is made in 1959, it does come true.
It does happen,
obviously the stock market crashing only I think in the timeline of the movie, only a couple of months after the movie's timeline.
Yeah, okay.
So I thought it was good, the setting. Did you expect it to be set in the 50s, or you knew that it was in the 1920s?
I didn't really even think about that. I didn't look in. I'm trying to come into these movies not knowing anything about it. I don't research or anything. I just sit and watch it and embrace it.
And what was your immediate reaction?
As the film as a whole, it's quite a progressive film, which I found I was quite surprised by. I don't know, I've just assumed, the 50s were conservative in film, but yeah, it's quite a feminist film, you might say, in some parts, but yeah. I found it funny. I don't really like a lot of modern comedies. I don't know. I just maybe more American comedies so much. I guess I prefer British humor, but I found this funny and enjoyable.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty progressive. You said to me before I had even watched it, you were like, oh, it's pretty progressive.
Yeah.
And I think, it really is. Especially Marilyn Monroe. I can't speak to her.
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe, I've never seen any of the movies that she's in. And
cheers.
Cheers to yourself. She was actually pretty great in it. I was reading all of the horror stories.
The character's sort of perfect for her.
Yeah, it is perfect for her. It's a pretty fun movie. It's not like a super. It's meant to be a bit of a. Even the character itself, she's not very smart.
Yeah.
And I was reading a little bit about how awful she was with her lines, because she was obviously going through some stuff. She only died 3 years later.
I think on another podcast, they were saying the director was telling the other actors, you have to be perfect every time, because when Marilyn gets it right, that's what we're going with.
Yeah, that's it. Could you imagine she had to say, oh man, I can't remember the line, but it was like 3 words.
Yeah,
you got some booze or something. It was like
that's where I was saying to you in a message, mixed emotions. It's like at that time she was struggling with drugs and alcohol, and it's kind of they're making light of sneaking alcohol behind the backs of the band leader and stuff. You're
like knowing not knowing, I guess, understanding a bit more about what you understand about. Well, we're touching knees now. About Hollywood. That you go, well, they probably didn't intend that. I mean, they said it during the that era? What was it? When Prohibition era?
Yeah,
it's set then, so there's a bit of a story point on them sneaking alcohol in.
Yeah,
and having a shared secret. Because they immediately, it was like as soon as the guys walk into the bathroom and she's there having a drink, there's a shared secret. Well, they've. The idea of they're keeping a secret from her too.
Yeah.
Although I don't understand why that she hasn't picked up on it immediately. But that's why the character's dumb.
It's kind of, the film's a little bit slapstick, isn't it? Like it's over the top. When they're partying in, what was Jack Lemon's character's name? Daphne?
Oh, yeah, in his like bed. And all the women come. Yeah, it is. That's the thing.
Like they're making a racket and the band leader is sleeping.
Yeah,
just down.
And he's like, I'm not buying it. You're asked to suspend disbelief quite a bit.
Yeah, which is fine. I think I'm happy to. The more and more I watch these films, I'm like, that's what I want, I think, out of a film. I don't necessarily want reality all the time.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It's not what I expected. I don't know what I expected, to be honest. I didn't know anything about the movie except the poster.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I think I'd seen a picture of someone in a bathtub or something, which I think was the one where Tony Curtis was in the bathtub. and it was Some Like It Hot, and I was like, "Was this a movie about baths? You
Yeah.
know, water?"
Yeah.
And it turns out it's jazz was what they're referring to. It's
Yeah.
to do with jazz.
It's a great name for the film, I think.
Yeah, I
Really
think so.
appropriate.
I think it's a really good name. It's yeah, it was more slapstick, and I'll be honest, I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Like multiple times, like surprised, like not like, oh, I'm being generous, this is an old movie. Like I thought it was genuinely funny. Jack Lemmon is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
Brilliant. Yeah.
His little lines or the looks he gives, and even the little just the little responses at the end of the movie. What was it? There was the guy was that she was he was betrothed to or engaged to or whatever.
Yeah.
He's saying listing all the things that's wrong with him, and there's a couple of double entendres in there, but they only become clear as double entendres because of Jack Lemmon's response. Like, you know, like we can change that. It's like, you know, like the look with his eyes where he's like, you immediately wouldn't have thought like he was talking about getting a sex change operation or whatever.
Yeah.
But as soon as he gives that look, no, you weren't, you know, like, oh, okay, of course that could be taken two ways. And because of him, I think he got nominated for an Oscar as well.
I think he's probably the star of the film, I think, as far as overall how he delivered the character.
Yeah.
So,
it was, Tony Curtis was great too. I didn't think he was as funny, but that's the character.
He's a different character. Though his accent when he was playing the rich
guy. Did you know what he was doing?
I was like, it's a little bit South African, maybe a little bit Kiwi in there.
Do you know what he was actually doing though?
Oh,
what he was doing with it? Why he didn't talk like that? He was trying to be Cary Grant. Do you know Cary Grant has that sort of what do they call it? It's not European and it's not American. It's got a name. The type of way you'd speak.
Yeah, okay.
It's it'll come to me. It's just like a way of speaking that doesn't quite sound British, doesn't quite sound American.
Yeah.
If you ever watch a Cary Grant movie, I don't know, North by Northwest, is that on this list? What's on here that's
probably. But it's ridiculous, but it
is. It's kind of posh.
It
Apparently, Cary Grant actually saw it, and he knew that that's what he was doing.
Yeah,
he says, "I don't talk like that," but he does. He talks like that. When I first watched the scenes where he started talking, and he starts to talk to, so he's on the beach. And he's like, because they're both dressed as women, and you're sort of like, how's this movie going to play out? Is they just going to stay as women the whole time? How are they going to get exposed?
You can tell they're not happy about it. They both want to reveal their identity so they can actually date.
Yeah, exactly. So there's you got Jack Lemmon, who obviously fancies Marilyn Monroe's character, and then you and then you have Tony Curtis, who obviously fancies Marilyn Monroe's character, and they set up shop at when they finally get to Florida. They sort of both have this potential romance, one that one doesn't want, Lemon doesn't want the romance with the old rich guy, and Tony Curtis does want. So you end up having these sort of two competing things that complement each other in the storyline. And then Tony Curtis goes and somehow gets a bike, somehow gets aren't asked.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask questions how he got the captain's uniform or any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But he gets, and also I kept thinking about the makeup. Like they got full faces and makeup, and then you're not seeing.
Then all of a sudden he doesn't.
Yeah, like I think at the end of a day, I'm pretty sure it's a pretty big task to rub your makeup off. But
it's because the film's in black and white, so we don't really know if there's still lipstick on.
Well, part of the reason it was shot in black and white. Do you know? Did you read that on the?
Oh no.
So I should stop asking. Did you? And if you do know, you can just slap me over the back of the head and say you do know that. So the reason that it was shot in black and white, which is something that was stipulated to never happen for a Marilyn Monroe movie. So her contract said all her movies must be in color. And
interesting. And it's not usually common for comedies.
I don't know
at that time. I think I did hear somewhere that normally dramas were still in black and white, but then comedies were all in color.
What year was On the Waterfront? 5 years earlier, and that's black and white. Yeah. So the reason that was allowed to be in black and white was because of the way the makeup would be more convincing on Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, and when Marilyn Monroe was informed of that, and shown, I think she was shown then she relented and said, yeah, okay, this can be in black and white. And I think it works much better.
Oh, yeah.
It also works
That's
better
good.
because it's set in 1929.
Yeah.
It simplifies
that's right.
everything. It's like, it is kind of great. I actually liked it. It would be great in color, but I thought it worked really well
Yeah,
as a black and white
I
movie.
was happy with it.
Helped with
I'm getting used to these black and white films the more we watch them.
Yeah, you kind of realize that all the stuff with CGI and all the different looks and everything with movies, they're all in service to the story. And if they end up being fancy on their own, oh, like, look at this shot, oh wow, then they kind of take away from the story, and that's where modern movies have kind of fallen apart. And when you get a really good one that's got a really good story, it could be in black and white. I'm pretty sure that there was a black and white version of Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay.
I think he made a black and white version of that movie.
Yeah,
Not like someone else made it, like George Miller actually went back and...
It would be a good study of seeing how people respond to a film.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if people would even go see it. But I think you can get it if you buy the box set. I think you can get the black and white version on it, which would be fun to watch because essentially it's exactly the same thing. Nothing is different. Like you're just losing color.
Yeah.
But you get the story if you watch movies for story.
Yeah.
And it is a really good story. This is a fun story. And it's simple.
There's a lot of thoughts gone into the story and it playing out.
Yeah.
You know.
And the location's really nice too. Like that beach, that location. So they start in Chicago, which is all backs. What is it? We're getting off track. Because we have a little plan here, and we're getting way off track straight away. We keep rambling. But I will quickly say that I watched a documentary, and I cannot remember what it was, but I remember in that documentary it was about L. Frank Baum, the guy who wrote Wizard of Oz. There's a whole bunch of Wizard of Oz books. And he wrote them at a resort, and I didn't know where it was, but I remembered what it looked like. And when this movie started and they went to the resort, they obviously start in Chicago, they escape and they end up on the train, and then the train goes to Florida, which for people, pretty much one of these old movies, everyone was shot in Los Angeles or some part of Los Angeles. They're always...
Okay.
So this was shot in California, Southern California, San Diego. I was looking up the name of the place. I couldn't find it, but that is they shot it at the exact same hotel.
Yeah, amazing.
That was where Wizard of Oz was written.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go.
The random
fun fact.
Fun fact. That's basically all it is. It's a
Was
useless
that our fun fact segment?
I don't know. We're up to, what have we got here? We're looking at we've talked about the plot and the key themes, but we actually haven't really talked about the key themes. What are the key themes?
Yes.
It seems to be dealing with what? Like, trying to think. Intelligence? It's just a comedy, having fun.
Yeah, are there any good characters in this? Like, there's lots of silly mistakes and...
I honestly think, you could probably pull themes out of it. Say, that's dealing with themes of identity and gender identity.
No,
I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
Not at all. I think it's like that's just putting something onto it that it really isn't. And some movies aren't, like maybe Talladega Nights, Will Ferrell comedy. Maybe if I rewatch it, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's themes in there. But mostly it's going to be just comedy. It's just laughs, silly things that people wanted to do. Yeah. Not always themes and things. I think that's silly. So there's no themes in this.
I was listening to a lead singer of a band that I really like, and he was talking about music, which seems to have a lot of religious themes. And he was like, it's not this or that. He's just like exploring things. And I think with film as well, it's not always a clear message. Oh, I'm doing this because I want to push a certain agenda. It's like you're wanting to tell a good story, and this character, it really works if they behave this way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think that makes sense. In service of the purpose of this movie, which the entire purpose of this movie.
Yeah. Which I think
laugh.
that's what we want more in film. We don't want to be, I guess, preached at. You want good storytelling, and if it suits the character to behave a certain way, let them behave that way.
Exactly.
Don't force it upon them.
And it feels like that this movie exists to be a truly great comedy. And like make you laugh and let you have fun and then let you off the hook and goodbye. There's no real transformation. They don't learn anything.
No. I feel Maybe not. We'll wait till talk
Literally.
about the end because I wasn't sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's go into that. So,
Yeah.
cast and performances. So, what do we think? We're going to go through. Well, we've got obviously Tony Curtis, who is Jamie Lee Curtis's dad, and
Oh, really?
yeah.
Here you go. I
he
saw.
was married to
I
Janet
don't think it was
Leigh.
on IMDb, but I was just looking up the movie, and it came up with a picture of him. I think it was pretty recent. And he was like really big in this massive cowboy hat. I was like, wow, this might not be the star-studded
No, I
as
guess
he used to be.
no. Well,
Yeah, you can't have it forever. Can
you
you?
can't have
Your good looks.
Age comes for everyone.
yeah.
Lots of bacon.
So I don't know really anything about him. He was quite a big actor in Hollywood, and
I guess he was. I don't know.
You're not sure. Yeah.
I know that he is Jamie Lee Curtis's dad.
Yeah.
And I know that in Clueless, there's a guy that the girls like to hang out with, and I think it's implied or said that he's gay. And earlier in the movie, before they realize it, he's like obsessed with Tony Curtis or something. And that's when and I'm like, who's Tony Curtis? And my mum's like, oh, he's an actor.
Yeah.
And that's all I know. That's it. Tony, that's a common name. Curtis, that's probably pretty common.
And that's our fun facts
That's
segment.
it. Actually, I also got another fact. His name isn't Tony Curtis. I think it's Bernard Schwartz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Schwartz?
That seems
I'll
to
ask
be more
ChatGPT what his real name is, but yeah.
seems to be more common with actors. Most of them have changed their names.
Yeah, well, is Jack Lemmon, was that his real name?
No, I don't know.
Oh, come on. Yeah, it is Bernard Schwartz. Yeah, he was born to Hungarian Jewish immigrants in New York City. Yeah, it could be that they changed it. Well, they did this quite a lot. So you've got Norma Jean Ray or Norma Ray Jean. So what was Marilyn Monroe's real name? She's a sad story too.
Yeah, I was listening to a bit this week, and it's pretty tragic.
Yeah, it's very sad. Here we go. Her real name was Norma Jean Mortensen.
Yeah.
She was born on June 1st, 1926, and she was baptized as Norma Jean Baker, taking her mother's surname, and later adopted the stage name Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously Marilyn Monroe it's got alliteration. Tony Curtis. Imagine, like, it's a bit of a slap in the face for people.
What would you choose, Tom?
Oh, if you asked me when I was like 8 years old, I would have been like, Brad something, because the big brother on Home Improvement was Brad, and I thought he was cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I don't know. I like my name.
Yeah.
My name will do. Yep.
Okay.
Barnes. It's pretty good. It's a little bit nasally to say. Barnes.
Yeah.
Ricard.
Ricard.
You can say Ricard. That's, by the way, that's our surnames.
Yeah. Thanks. I wasn't going to share it.
We're out there now. Yeah. So anyway, we were on Tony Curtis. Hang on. What would I be? Yeah. We didn't leave anything.
We were talking
untied,
about the actors. So
yeah, we're
Tony
talking about the
Curtis,
actors. So Tony Curtis, I thought he was great. I thought all the performances were really good. Like we said, Jack Lemmon was standout for me. The whole thing.
Yeah, he's, I don't know, reminds me of a Jim Carrey type character, sort of over the top, lots of facial expressions and fun.
And that funny style of acting, and he was. I saw him in Glengarry Glen Ross, in the 90s. I watched it not in the 90s, but and that's a drama, and he's really good in that too.
Yeah, okay.
He's good he's been in a lot of great movies. I'm just trying to remember what else I've seen recently that he's in, but he'll be on this list again, I'm sure. Jack Lemmon's fantastic.
Yeah.
He was really good. There was a lot of chemistry between him and Marilyn Monroe. Obviously, I can see why she was she was a star and why she was an icon. And obviously the tragedy of her whole tragic arc is its own really sort of...
It's kind of the dark side of Hollywood, I guess.
It is. It is super sad. And I think that probably added to it a bit, but it's not like it added to it and then you go back and watch her movies and you're like, she's not that good. I'm interested to see all the other movies that she's made before, the 7 Year Itch and things.
Do you know how versatile she was as an actor, or she's pretty...
I remember I read something today, so I did watch the movie today.
Yeah.
But I did also immediately read tons of stuff about it, so it's in my short-term memory.
Yeah.
That it was either Tony Curtis or Jack Lemmon said that she worked really, like she wasn't the best singer, she wasn't the best dancer, she wasn't the best actor. But what she did have is that she like worked really hard to bring the best out of herself, like to bring it all together in her movies and bring her best. And it was all sort of, what would you say, endearing, like it had, and she had good chemistry, and she was funny. I thought she was funny, and she was warm.
Well, the timing with the comedy was perfect, I think, with the actors, the way they respond. And it's got to be, I think, the actors bring out the best performance in each other. But though it did sound like it was quite difficult to film it.
Some of the takes were like 50 takes.
I imagine how that'd be so difficult doing a comedy scene when you're so bored of the punchline and you're just doing it over and over.
I know, that shows how talented they are, right?
Yeah. I don't think I could do it. And that's why I'm not an actor.
Yeah, well, that would be, I reckon that'd be, well, I read that they, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, like would stand in a scene wearing these heels that were just not designed for their feet and like standing and dressed as women. And
they were running around
in heels, and they'd have to do like 50 takes. Like, no joke, we're saying 50 as it might sound big, but there really were many takes. And many of the things I was reading in the trivia that were 50 takes to get like simple things, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, and they'd go and soak their feet afterwards because they'll have swollen. 50 takes, like that's reset, back to first positions. It could take, that's like what, if you took like 3 or 4 minutes per take.
Yeah.
That's an hour. What's that? What is that? 10, 50? That's like 2 hours to get one shot.
Yeah, that's painful.
You'd go completely insane. And after the movie was finished, Billy Wilder, the director, I think he said awful things about her in the press and didn't invite her to the rap party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all these things. And eventually they made up, but before she died. But yeah, like, because she nearly killed him.
Frustrating.
Nearly killed him with the frustration of it.
Yeah.
But they had good chemistry. But all I'm saying is I can see the magic around Marilyn Monroe is legit.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, it's more musicians, and you see there's artists which aren't the greatest singers or musicians, but there's some essence or something about them that just draws people to them. Yeah.
She might have not been that impressive in person, when you actually see her and hang out with her, she might have, struggled. And
on the podcast I was listening to, the Cinephiles, they recounted a story, I can't remember who it was, that was there with her, how they were just, Marilyn Monroe and this man were walking down the street, and she's like, no one was paying attention to them, and she's like, do you want to see it? And he's like, see what? And then she sort of switched her demeanor and started walking down the street with this confidence, and people started turning around and just looking at her. So I think she was aware of it and could turn it on. And
it would have been amazing. Like, maybe we have lots of people like that today, but everyone's trying so hard on Instagram to replicate the vibe.
Yeah, it's hard to do today, I think.
Yeah, I sweat profusely every time I do it, but I do it, and people admire it when I do it. But I know, but not everyone can do it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that I recognize other skill in, like, I see you, Marilyn Monroe. I know you can't see me, but those of us who can have the skill. It's good.
Yeah.
You're laughing because you don't think it's true.
I'm sure you do.
It's the backwards
I'm just so
hat.
used to being around it.
Yeah, you've got look. You haven't seen my upper echelon of charisma when I really crank it up.
When you walk through Frankston.
Now we know, but now people know where we live.
Heads turned. Good
one, Nicholas Rickard. This is meant to be a conspiracy movie podcast where the government will never find us.
Yeah.
So costume-wise, she wears a dress in this movie that I was like, is this the most risque thing that's ever been on movies at this point?
Yeah.
There's a scene.
That's what I was just not shocked, but just like taken aback by some of the comedy and some of how progressive it was, and
there's a lot
sexual it was at times.
It was quite sexual.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. It's just
it wasn't overt, just innuendo.
Lots of innuendo, which I'll admit it's just funnier.
Yeah,
it's a lot more room for comedy than, like, a whale's vagina, like, which is a reference to Anchorman, just in case you didn't know. Like, it just like gets so absurdly sexual sometimes in movies that it sort of loses its punch.
Yeah,
it's not as innocent.
more to shock. Yeah.
It is more to shock. I keep knocking this little cable, but yeah. So there's a scene. So they obviously we've gone through the story. So they're escaping the gangsters. They get in the train. They go down. They start. They actually play in this band. After they've gone swimming with her and all the other girls. Like, there's plenty of eyeballs on them to go, this person has hairy legs. No, it doesn't come up. That's okay.
They must have shaved.
Gosh. But something about it just isn't. Anyway. And then they finally do their first gig, which you'd think maybe this is going to be a big plot point, are they going to be able to work in the band? No, it doesn't matter.
That's not at all.
Doesn't matter. We're not here.
It was only a practice run that we really see them play together, right?
Yeah, and they initially are like, they haven't got enough oomph in it, and then they just immediately fix it. They go, oh, you put more oomph into your jazz or whatever lingo they use, and then they do, and then that's it. We move on, because the purpose of this movie is to make you laugh. But their first gig, the camera starts really far out and then moving across the room toward the band. And Marilyn Monroe has been sold as the ukulele player, which was apparently given to her because the people thought, the production designer or whatever, thought that it made her breasts look more impressive when she held a little ukulele against them.
It's terrible.
Which speaks to how they saw her. She was just sex walking, right? Like, that's all her purpose was, which is obviously why this poor woman ended up,
But you saw there's elements in the film where they, the way Jack and other guy,
Tony, and other guy, decades of film career, many awards, millions of dollars,
Mr. Curtis,
other guy, sorry.
How they were treated when they were dressed up as women, because a lot of guys were cracking onto them. The bellboy was like saying he had a key to their room, and he's like, "Did you?
Don't need to leave it unlocked. I have an all-access pass."
It's like, wow.
She's like rejecting. Well, I keep saying she, but he keeps rejecting her, rejecting the dude, rejecting. Anyway.
It's like, we all know, we've come across different guys who are sleazebags.
They're all portrayed that way, though.
Yeah.
All of them. When you think about it, the only two that you've sort of... Actually, the only one that maybe isn't, that's associated with the women, is the band manager, the guy. I don't remember what his name was.
Yeah.
Beanstalk, I think his name was. Beanstalk. Not Beanstalk, Beanstalk.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that shot where they're leading up to the band, like, Marilyn Monroe is wearing this dress that she wears a variation of.
Yeah.
A light one or a dark one, and she's got the sequins all over it, and it's black and white, so you can't quite tell if what you're looking at is a 1950. The thing that's shocking is, like, you've seen red carpets. People would wear shocking things much worse than this.
Yeah.
Not that this is bad, but so it's not that element. It's the fact that it's 1959.
Yeah.
And you don't expect to have a thing that basically feels like it's showing 80% of her breasts through sheer cloth with some, what would I say, sequins or something covering the nipples, and that's it.
Yes.
To basically make it blunt. So literally, and the movie, she's singing, and there's a spotlight, and the spotlight makes sure to crop at like around her collarbone, and just has her head. Sorry, I'm just leaning back, and then so the lower part is in shadow. So it's almost like they knew that they were pushing it.
Yeah.
And that they didn't fully light the outfit because it was so risque. But then at the same time, I was like, it's black and white. That whole section could all be just skin colored cloth.
You don't really know.
Couldn't really tell. You're left
Guessing.
guessing. But and like, it's a full backless dress, so because it's a kind of, I wouldn't say it's a story point, but she wears it in lots of different situations and turns around, because they're always, the whole thing is that they're, like Tony Curtis is, pretending to be this guy and have this romantic, I guess a bit of a charade they go through first. But and so I was just watching going, I didn't think she was going to be that risque.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a little bit more, I don't know what I think of things that are old. Just a bit
you just assume they were conservative, but they weren't.
No, I thought it was exactly as pushed it. I thought it was on par with some of the stuff people wear on today, when you might say, well, that's a bit risque.
Yeah.
Risque. That's how we're using risque quite a lot. I hope that's actually a proper way of saying it. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but the costumes were made by an Australian guy,
Oh, okay.
Ori Kelly.
Just one guy.
One guy, little, in a little dark room under some stairs. They were whipping him as he. Sorry, mate. I'll finish your costumes in a sec. Just leave us alone. He said something like he's a Kiwi. I always go. My fake Aussie accent is actually a Kiwi accent. Maybe that's where it comes from. Bunch of people, English people, moved over to New Zealand and they pretended to be Australians, and that's as close as they could get. My version. G'day, mate.
Love it.
I've almost done your costume. Now keep going into Kiwi.
Yeah.
It's very subtle.
I won't do mine because
It'd be convincing.
My wife says it's inappropriate.
It's inappropriate to do.
My Australian accent over the top.
Well, anyway, the costumes were good though.
Yeah.
I thought it was
They're
excellent.
fantastic. I don't know if they were of the period. My wife keeps complaining because she was a vintage clothing dealer for a long time. She has been complaining a lot about the films, how they're not era appropriate.
What does she mean they're not era appropriate? Maybe
So they are
made
like too modern. So if it's set in the 40s, they'll be like dressed more 60s.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, the Some Like It Hot was set in the 20s, and they were wearing flapper dresses when they were all very.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember if she said that about this film. So
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't know. I would just
I have no idea.
no
But
idea.
it's great. You get lost in the world. It's very different to the way people dress today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've talked about black and white. We're returning to our segments. You see, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you realize that we often waffle all over the place.
We do.
We're trying to be a bit more disciplined. So please tell us if this discipline is working. A chair's being moved in another room. Okay, so I think we should probably get towards the tail end. Oh, hang on. We have other movies that Billy Wilder has made in this top 100.
Yeah, and I want you to tell me a bit about, is there anything about some of the shots, the camera angles that you found interesting as a film buff?
I didn't really think about it too much.
I really like the train scene with Jack Lemmon and the girls in the bed.
Yeah.
I imagine it would have been quite difficult to capture all those faces, and then there was shots of their legs under the bed. There's
thought it
some
was
fun shots.
It was very dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't lots of like master shots. You know how they often just get the wide shot and they're on the wide shot with lots like Casablanca. Yeah. You know, and then they come in for maybe one close up. You know, all soft lens for, the woman, and then like a harsh light for the guy, and all, and then just for key lines. It wasn't really shot like that. It obviously, I thought it was. I didn't really think, oh, that's a great shot, which is to me is good. You don't want to be like, oh, that's a great shot.
Yeah, okay.
Because you want to think it later.
Yeah.
Hang on, I've got some of those images in my head.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just a vibe. This movie was a vibe.
Yeah.
This is just a genuinely good laughing time. I don't think it was a family movie. Just as a side note, if you want to watch an old movie with the kids, it's got a lot of sexual innuendo stuff in it. So, it looked good, and it looked like a comedy. It was how many times can I say it? It was just a fantastic comedy. Yeah. And you don't really watch a lot of comedies and go, oh, the shots and the way that was shot. Yeah. I think it just ticked the boxes, and like you said, a lot of thankless shots. Important but thankless shots. Like like you said, the shots of the scurrying feet and those sorts of things. The reaction shots, which I think Jack Lemmon was so good at doing in a 2-shot or even a 3-shot, which is where there's 3 characters or there's 2 characters in a shot. He didn't need a close up. He didn't need the editor to say, "Hey, look at his reaction." He was so good next to the other characters, even in full makeup, like his eyes, and even when there's like all these other women scurrying and saying their lines around him, he's definitely got a vibe, this guy. And I'm looking forward to watching him in a lot more movies.
Yeah. What other movies is he in? Do you know?
The only one that comes to mind is Glenn Ross, and
Okay.
is not at all like this and that guy in this. Let's have a look.
Okay. So,
We're at number 14, and there's 100 movies. So we'll just quickly look for any Jack Lemmon movies and any Billy Wilder movies that are on this list, and of which I cannot see anything for the next at least 20. Yeah, I don't see anything coming up here for a little while. We could ask while I waffle to the audience, they could see if there's any with
That's all right.
ChatGPT. No.
No,
All right. So
that's
as far as all the way down to 51, I can't see any that come to mind, but I might have forgotten. Whoop. Move the glass a little bit further away.
Sorry.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
do we think this movie deserves its place in the number 14?
It's hard to, because we haven't had any other comedies, I can't really compare it to others, but
In terms
guess
of its
so, yeah.
influence, I guess its influence is things like White Chicks or any of these ones where guys dress up as girls,
Okay.
which it became a kind of a genre of movies. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely got a great deal of influence. I think it deserves the place. I think it was voted number one comedy of all time by a bunch of different people on different lists.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other comedies that have since got up there, but
It's a movie I'd like to watch again, I think, I think that's a good sign.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'd like to watch it with a bunch of people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know, like it's 2 hours, so it's not a quick watch.
No, but I was very comfortable watching it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I thought the subplot, the motivation for the characters to get away, you get a little bit more gangster stuff dotted here and there, and the characters are
I
pretty
think
funny.
it's very funny. It's not like you had the gangster scene at the start and it was, forgotten about. It was entwined in the story, so it's great.
I thought I do think it deserves this place. I think you can't have every movie be just like, could have been a contender, all that crap. You need
The best quote from this was the furry end of or the fuzzy end.
Yeah. I always get the fuzzy end of the lollipop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great quote.
You said you had something that you learned about the actors in this movie, but did you want to say that?
Oh, it's how do we bring it in?
I can cut this out.
Yeah, okay. So is that can we cut and all come in? So obviously Marilyn Monroe had, her struggles with alcohol, and then she's very sexually active, and we all know about her relationship with a president of America.
Oh yeah.
But I've been reading a book and listened to an interview recently with this guy that was in the mafia around the same time.
Yep.
And she seemed to be used by government agencies to get sexual blackmail on powerful people.
Oh, I like this. This
Which
is
is-
interesting. This is relevant, Nicholas. Why did this not come up at the first 30 seconds of our podcast? It makes sense, especially with the whole dating this episode. But
Well, it's
Diddy
just
and
sad that she had a rough upbringing, and it seems like people around her used her to exploit. And she's suffered tremendously for it.
well, let's be
Yeah.
honest. If you are running a government agency and a single man gets voted and you didn't want to get in, and he could possibly upend your whole system's thing in like 2 4-year terms, just destroy your plans for doing all sorts of things that you thought were good. Well, it's pretty easy. You just get him with someone, get it on camera, and then boom, now you can control him.
Yeah.
It's not really that much of a conspiracy. It's just you don't need a conspiracy where powerful interests converge. That's George Carlin said that.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. And it sounds like what could be happening with Diddy and what happened with the dude who definitely killed himself. Yeah. What's his name?
Epstein.
Epstein, yeah.
Well, the mob says, so it's Sammy the Bull that was the guy that I was listening
I've heard
to.
that name before.
And he, I could be wrong. I'll give people a taster and then don't take my word for it. Go research it yourself.
Can we put the link in the description of the thing you're listening to?
Yeah. So basically the mob were turning against the Kennedy family because it was RFK, Robert Kennedy, who seemed to be coming down hard against the mob. So then they transferred that towards JFK, and then they didn't kill him, but they were sort of in with the people who did.
Yeah, interesting.
And he claims that they killed Marilyn as well because she's becoming too erratic, too addicted to drugs, and
Wow.
yeah.
That's interesting.
So
Well, it's very tragic. Honestly, her story is super tragic.
Yeah.
We don't really know I don't have much more knowledge about anything to do with this movie, honestly, going in. The next movie is Star Wars. So I know
blockbuster.
too much about that.
Yeah,
I've probably
It'll be a
forgotten
good one.
more about that movie than you could learn in a lifetime, or some sort of crappy line from a movie. But
it's interesting because I had no interest in watching Star Wars for a really long time and didn't watch it till probably late 20s, I think.
Oh well.
So
Did you? Well, we have to tune in
I'll
next week
say-
to find out if you enjoyed it.
well, I wasn't into sci-fi much at all. So, but
I
yeah.
think I was 4 when I watched Star Wars.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
we'll I don't remember watching. I wouldn't have stayed awake for all of it, but
Yeah.
I have vivid memories of the early shots from Star Wars.
Mm.
But yeah, that's next week. So we want to wrap up.
Yeah.
We had a good
It's
good
good
chat.
Yeah.
We stayed relatively disciplined.
Fairly structured.
I'm just seeing, is there anything we need to recap? Yeah, I think, obviously we like this movie. We think Some Like It Hot is a fun watch. And if you haven't seen it, or if you're looking for a classic comedy to watch and actually laugh at, and honestly, I think you will have a fun time with this movie. I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah. Out of 5 fuzzy lollipops.
Ooh, I'm going to give it 5 fuzzy lollipops.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
We're in alignment, so we have been consistently pretty aligned, haven't we?
I think so. Well, I'm not allowed to have my own opinion.
Yeah. We've predetermined that Nicholas, the rating will be my decision only. Yeah, I think that's great. I had a good time. So please let us know your
Thanks
thoughts
for
in the
hanging out.
comments. We hope this was a fun conversation. And make sure you check out the movie. We'll see you next week.
Take care.